By the way, I got to mention, I'm really pleased that we now have 100,000 subscribers in 1 year. Hi, I'm Miltonchang of Bonsaiheirloom. Today is the first week of November, and here's Leon. He's not going to sit still. Behind me, you'll notice it's a boxwood hedge, and further behind me is a nice sago palm, which I've grown for probably 40 years. Last week, we did a boxwood bonsai, and I got very positive response. And that reminded me, actually, boxwood is a very good bonsai subject because many of you would have a boxwood hedge in your garden, and they can all be dug up for bonsai. Although the one that I did last week, which I'll show you, I put it in a bonsai pot, that it looks pretty nice. So later on, we'll walk over there and take a look at that bonsai. It's not quite representative of what you would dig out of a garden because that was grown in the garden to become a tree for about 15 years. And that extrapolated to the subject of the following. So what other kind of a bonsai material I would talk about in the future? I would try to focus more on the material that you are likely to find in your area, which is like boxwood. And one surprisingly good material is rosemary, which we grow for herb. And the reason is that it has actually a very beautiful bark, trunk, if you let it grow to some size. So a rosemary plant can be made into all the way from small bonsai to fairly large bonsai because the trunk can get pretty thick. And another common tree back in East, which we rarely grow in California, is yew. The Japanese yew tend to be quite low, and they're very nice bonsai material. And then flower queens, hawthorn hedges, hedge maple, Japanese maple, so on and so forth. There are a lot of good material that are common for landscaping can be turned into bonsai trees. Okay, now I will try to answer today's question in terms of what kind of juniper to use, for example. Well, several juniper comes to mind. The one that you can readily get in nurseries is the Procumbens nana, which is a small kind of a hedge, a bush, kind of a low-growing juniper. It's not easy to find ones with thick trunk. The trunk tend not to thicken very much. So they're good for shohin or small bonsai. And you can actually find them quite commonly sold in bonsais because they are readily available and put into a pot and source bonsai. The other really highly desirable material, but I think it's oversold, is the Japanese Shinpaku bonsai. I think it's very nice because the needles are a little bit smaller than the Sargentai, which we normally use here. The needles are smaller and finer and grow more dense, and also have a very nice trunk. The problem I have with them is that they tend to turn brown in the wintertime, which the Sargentai doesn't, the Chinese juniper doesn't do. So I actually prefer the most common juniper. In Southern California, they call it prostrata juniper. And here we may call some of them, a similar one is called San Jose juniper or juniper in general. So you can easily go to the garden and find a juniper that's with some reasonable sized trunk and turn it into a bonsai. So to answer your question, Procumbens nana or prostrata juniper are the ones what I would like to use. The other question is what makes a bonsai master? Is a number of trees or what? No, I don't think so. I think it's really the quality of your bonsai. Some bonsai you look at, you feel like it's very pleasing, and most of a person's collection is very pleasing quality, that makes the person a master. Not by quantity. It's never by quantity. It's always by quality. And the other question is about, seems like there's so much emphasis in Japan and China that should we import seeds from other countries because they maybe make better bonsai material? I don't think so. We've been importing seeds and plant material for probably over 100 years. So there are plenty of material here, and now they are growing in the arboretum and parks and so forth, or nursery that you can get. And frankly, there are a lot of, US probably have the best selection of material outside of England. England also have extremely good material because gardening is a good hobby. So local material, quite a number of questions about aspen, or which is really a birch family. I think that those are all good material. Local materials are good. And if it's not commonly used and you found it to be good, satisfactory material, please let me know. But I think one very important criteria is that some plants have very long taproot, very little fibrous roots. So you want to find trees that tend to shoot out fibrous roots. And there was one question about what's fibrous roots. Well, it's just that when you cut off the big roots, they send out little smaller roots, and they send out even finer, smaller roots. So that's fibrous roots, which is what really absorbs the moisture for the tree. And the next set of questions is about the clipping. Well, let me try to give you a summary of the whole clip and grow. When you take a tree to start into a bonsai, when you use wiring, you think about how to use the wire to change the existing tree into a bonsai. And that, in some sense, limits the scope of what the tree can be. In the clip and grow, the thinking is a little bit different. In a sense, what can you cut back to the basics, and then you let it grow out in a way you can imagine it to be. So it gives you a lot more freedom. It's more like a free canvas. You started with something, and then you, like a canvas, you build on it to build whatever you want. So I like clip and grow, and what I said is to look for the line, the design of the tree that you would like to, as a basic design, and then you let it grow from that. So you cut off the rest of it and let it grow it out. And don't cut too frequently. And quite a few questions is about how frequent should I clip and so forth. Well, do what you like, but just don't clip it too often, and plant it in bigger pots so that it can, nursery growing pots, so they have more feeder roots to make the tree grow faster. And don't clip it too quickly because you want the trunk to thicken. I think that's it, but do what you feel like it. There was another question about the pine needle and the pine candle. Well, just play with it. Basically, just remember when the bud from a pine tree grows, it shoots out a long needle with no, long candle with no needle. And then the candle start to grow needle, and then you clip it, then the needle will grow out and start to form buds again, and it will branch, and you can cut it again, and that's how you get the needles eventually to be the same length and short. So play with it. Don't listen to anybody, including me, too word by word, but rather think about what I said and extrapolate to the way it suits your style, your environment. Then there's a couple of questions about wiring. Basically, the issue is the wire left on too long. They eat into the bark, and then what can I do with it? Well, you can hope that the bark will grow over it, but I don't think so. The trunk, the branch will never get quite that thick where you want it to be. So cut it off, start over again, use the clip and grow method, and it'll be fine. Again, don't leave the wire too long. I think anchor wire is excellent leave it on for a month or several weeks or a month or two, and then remove it, you will have no scar. And if it bounces back a little bit, you can pull it down at another place, or you can wire it another place. So I think wiring really had to be used sparingly, and there's so many trees I've seen being damaged by wiring that they will never be recovered. There are quite a few questions about where do I find this kind of tool, like scraping and all that. Well, improvise. There are all kinds of tools. For example, there are tools for cooking. There are tools for laying carpets. A very nice knife for cutting branches and so forth. There are all kinds of tools. Just improvise. There's no need to pay for expensive tools just because they got the bonsai name added to it. Oh yeah, there's another one about how not to top the tree to make the top flat like a monkey on the top of a tree. That's cute, but I don't know what it means. A monkey tend not live on top of the tree, but if you look at a very well-established, mature estate tree, the top is actually pretty rounded, pretty flat on the top. Like every circle, the top is pretty flat, but that tends to be the way that mature tree looks like. So you can make the apex all the way from pointed, like most of the evergreen trees are, or make it a little bit rounder at the top, or where several top branches grow out to make it a little bit roundish. They're all fine. Just whatever sets your ideal. I want you to set your mind free in terms of what a bonsai ought to be. It's just a representative what nature looks like in your mind into your little pot. Okay, do what you want. I think you'll enjoy that process rather than hunk out on the details. I think the one last set of questions is really various ways of our soil. And one question was, what do I think about Akadama and Kiryuzuna? Well, I think the Japanese words never ends because it's merchandising. So that's the second word I came across the first time. So I looked up the web, and what it says is just really lava sand, sand gotten from the lava rocks. Well, that has to be good. It says it has a little bit more iron, and it retains water a little bit better because the porosity holds water. So I'm sure that's good, but heck, we can buy really inexpensive small lava rocks very inexpensively and use that as well. Actually, I found a real fine lava powder. It's actually really gummy. It prevents air into the roots, so I will not use that. So I'll use the real tiny lava rock instead of this fancy material that no doubt is expensive from Japan. I like Akadama because it's just basically taking a clay kind of a material and fired. So it's not unlike the little pellets we have, the round balls, that the glassy material that's fired from clay we use for hydroponic. They absorb water very well, very quickly. So it's easy to water, and then it retains water for probably at least more than a day. So I think that's a very good material, Akadama. But I think it's really hard to beat the composition I have advocated, which is soil, which you begin topsoil, which is very found in every garden, or sandy loam, which you can find in the landscaping places. Sometimes you may want to add a little sand if it's too clayey, but you add organic material to hold water and release a little bit of fertilizer. And that could be could be redwood compost, which is readily available everywhere, only if you go to the nursery and ask them, or for that matter, coconut coir. These are all good material to not only aerate, they retain water and retain a little bit of a fertilizer. And then lastly, when in doubt, I add a little bit extra, equal amount of perlite, 1 part of perlite, because to make sure there's plenty of air going to the water. But with perlite, then you probably need to water a little bit more because that creates the airspace. This is actually coconut coir. I use that quite interchangeably with peat moss, and that's the peat moss is the Canadian stuff that's used for gardening, and so these are all very good material. And coconut coir is sold as coconut coir like this, and also as the powder that I showed you earlier. This is more for orchids. That's not what you want to use for bonsai. You want to use the powdery stuff to mix with your soil. So again, it's 1 part soil, 1 part peat moss, and 1 part perlite. So this is the perlite, which adds a lot of aeration to the soil, and it also retains water, self-absorbs water quite a bit. And then let's never talk about the soil alone, always talk about soil and watering at the same time. When you plant your bonsai, water several times, press it down, poke it so that there's no voids missing, and then do it several times so that when you water it, water will be retained for a short period of time and get absorbed into the organic material. And I mentioned peat moss a couple of times, and peat moss is just the brown stuff that you get from Canada. And it's actually a decomposition from sphagnum moss. So sometimes they're used interchangeably, but the sphagnum moss is generally referred to the fibrous stuff that you found with orchids, because they hold a lot more water, rather than drain out with the peat moss. It doesn't absorb water sometimes after it's dried out. So that's all for the Q&A today, and thank you very much for watching. I hope you like it. I'm a little bit under the water. I'm a little bit under the weather. And please like my video and subscribe to our channel so that we can notify you of future announcements and video posting. By the way, I gotta mention, I'm really pleased that we now have 100,000 subscribers in 1 year. And for that, next week we'll announce a raffle, so please tune in next week. Thank you very much.